If you're like me and any other person on this planet, then you have problems. You're aware of them, you try to solve them, but sometimes they can get to be too much. You can quickly become overwhelmed by your problems and lose sight of all the good around you. In this video, I'm going to share some tips on how you can stop being overwhelmed by your problems so you can find solutions and move forward in your life. I am Maria Elmer. I'm a mother, I'm a Christian, and I'm a mentor for my friends MikeandMaria.com, where we teach the practical side of living a faith-filled life. Hit the subscribe button and click the bell to be informed each time we upload a new video. I had a big fat bandage on my arm. It was cumbersome and obvious, couldn't hide it, and it was covering my arm. And not only that, I was in a lot of pain. My hand was throbbing. I had an injury. I had a problem. It was a problem. And to avoid the blood going to my hand, I held my hand like this. I had my hand up like this. So I couldn't hide it. Big fat bandage, hand awkwardly in the air at all times because of the throbbing pain in my hand. It was a problem. I went to church like this. You want to know the first thing that everybody noticed? It was not that my hair looked pretty darn good for doing it with one hand. It was not that my outfit was something that I had spent 30 minutes scrambling, digging through my closet, trying to find something that I could put on by myself. They didn't notice those accomplishments. They noticed the problem. They notice the problem. Problems get our attention. And that's for good reason. When there's a problem, that means we need to find a solution. And so our go-to is we're wired to look for problems. We look for problems and then we try to find solutions. And then when we find the solution, we move on to the next problem. That's how we're wired. So if we feel like there's a lot of problems, there's a reason for that. There are a lot of problems, and we're wired to look for the problems. Something that we can work on is appreciating the solutions that we've already found and celebrating successes that we've come across. And taking the time to see that life isn't only problems. There's more to life. There's more to life than problems. So there's this good visual about problems that I've seen before, and I think about it a lot. That if you have a whiteboard and there's no writing on it, it's just a whiteboard. It has a dot on the whiteboard. Somebody's drawn a dot somewhere on the whiteboard. So when you go into the room and you look at the whiteboard, what's the first thing you see? You see the dot. You notice the dot. You don't notice that most of the board is white. You don't notice that most things are going well on that board. No, you notice the dot because it's out of place. It's a problem. We have our problem antenna going all the time, scanning, searching, looking. Where are the problems? Where are the problems? That's how we're wired. And it's okay. Unless it's not okay, unless it gets overwhelming, and unless it gets too much and too heavy, so we're only looking for problems and we're only seeing problems. And we're kind of drowning in it. That's not helpful, right? It's not helpful. So how do we retrain our brain to not only look for the problems? That's the question. Like, how do we retrain ourselves? Like, this is so natural and easy. It just comes, it just happens. We can pick up on those problems super easy. And that can turn into criticism, and it can turn into overwhelm. So how do we overcome this? How do we retrain our brain? I have 3 steps. You want to hear the 3 steps to retrain your brain so you're not overcome with problems? Okay, here's my 3 steps. Let's see. Number 1, you acknowledge the problems you've already solved. So in my story in the beginning, I acknowledged I did my hair with one hand. Yay, I did it. It was hard. I acknowledged to myself I found an outfit that I could put on by myself with one hand. Often other people aren't going to acknowledge these successes, so we need to acknowledge them ourselves. Number 2, we celebrate the successes of others. We look for the things that other people have overcome, and we acknowledge it. We congratulate them. We see what they've overcome, and we celebrate with them. They've overcome things, and we can bring that up in conversation, and we can talk to them about it so they can remember problems that they've already solved, so they can feel good too. Once you've done those 2 steps, you acknowledge your success, you acknowledge the success of others, then you can move on to step 3. You tackle the problem that's in front of you, because now you have success energy and you're not feeling overwhelmed and overcome, so many problems, not enough solutions. You're using that success energy that you've built up by acknowledging previous successes, and then you tackle the problem. And there's another side to this. There's what not to do. We always have to remember what not to do too, right? Okay, number 1, don't only talk about the problem. Do I need to say why? It's kind of obvious. People don't want to only talk about problems. Brings you down. Number 2, don't leave out your successes in conversation or the successes of others in conversation. When you're having a conversation, don't leave out the good stuff. Don't leave out the positive. Don't leave out the solutions. Number 3, don't forget about all the life that's in between problem and solutions. There's so much life in there. There's recreation, there's enjoyment, there's play. Don't forget about those things. When we include those in our lives, we don't feel so bogged down by the problems when we find balance. So the next conversation that you have with someone, what if you tried to talk about your successes, their successes, along with the problems? You have to be intentional. You have to be intentional to do that, because problems are obvious. Just like my hand and the big fat bandage, that was obvious. It was obvious. And the dot on the whiteboard, everybody's looking at that dot. You can't avoid it. But if we're intentional, we don't have to be swimming in the problems or feel like they're too heavy. We can acknowledge past successes and look with hope to the future for the solutions that we're going to find.